Acharya Shtotra Shata Srimad Divine Grace Ek Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Iskon Deviti Pongaracharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ram Vishnu Path Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Shtotra Shata Srimad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Rukmini Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Purushottam Kshetra Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mani Ki Jai. Jamuna Mani Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Swami Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. All glories to the assembly. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembly. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembly. Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Saraswati Vyasam Jaya Mudhiraye Rashtakayeshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Namah Pankajanaaya Namah Pankajamaline Namaste Pankajangre. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Verse number 14. O Nama Tripye Rasave Kathayam. O Nama Tripye Rasave Kathayam. Mahattam Ekanta Parayanasya. Nantam Gunanam Agunasya Jakmu. Yogeshwaraye Bhavapadma Mukhya. O Nama Drupye Rasave Kathayam. Mahattam Ekanta Parayanasya. Nantam Gunanam Agunasya Jakmu.
गुणानाम् अगुणस्य जग्मो
योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्या
योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्या
नामतृप्ये रसवेत्कथायाम्
नामतृप्ये रसवेत्कथायाम्
महत्तमेकान्तपरायणस्य
महत्तमेकान्तपरायणस्य
नान्तं गुणानामगुणस्य जग्मो
गुणानामगुणस्य जग्मो
योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्या
योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्या नामजप्ये रसवेत्कथायाम् महात्ममेकान्तपरायणस्य नान्तं गुणानामगुणस्य जग्मो योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्या नामद्रव्ये रसवेत्कथायाम् महत्तमेकान्तपरायणस्य नान्तं गुणानामगुणस्य जग्मो योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्या
नाम द्रव्येत रसवेत्कथायाम्
ओ नामद्रव्ये रसवेत्कथायाम्
महतेकान्तपरायणस्य
महतेकान्तपरायणस्य
नान्तं गुणानाम् अगुणस्य जग्मो
नान्तं गुणानामगुणस्य जग्मो
योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्यः
योगेश्वराय भवपाद्ममुख्यः
Who is he? Naam. Specifically. Tripye. Get full satisfaction. Rasavit. Expert in relation. Melonic. Kathayam. In the topics of Mahattama. The greatest amongst the living beings. Ekanta. Exclusively. Parayanasya. Of one who is the shelter of. Now. Never. Antam. End. Gunanam. Of attributes. Agunasya. Of the transcendence. Jagmu. Could ascertain. Yoga Ishvara. The lords of mystic power. Yea. Holy. Bhava. Lord Shiva. Padma. Lord Brahma. Mukhya. Heads. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, that is Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings, and His transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar, rasa, ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about Him? Please repeat the translation. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings, and His transcendental attributes cannot be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Can
about him.
But Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are two chiefs of the demigods. They are full of mystic powers. For example, Lord Shiva drank an ocean of poison, of which one drop was sufficient to kill an ordinary living being. Similarly, Brahma could create many powerful demigods, including Lord Shiva. So, they are Ishwaras, or lords of the universe, but they are not the supreme powerful. The supreme powerful is Govinda, Lord Krishna. He is transcendent, and his transcendental attributes cannot be measured even by such powerful Ishwaras as Shiva and Brahma. Therefore, Lord Krishna is the exclusive shelter of the greatest of all living beings. Brahma is counted amongst the living beings, but he is the greatest of all of us. And why is the greatest of all living beings? He is the reservoir of all enjoyment. Everyone wants to relish some kind of taste in everything. But one who is engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord can derive unlimited pleasure from such engagement. The Lord is unlimited, and His name, attributes, pastimes, encourage, variegatedness, etc. are unlimited, and those who relish them can do so unlimitedly and still not be satiated. This fact is confirmed in the Padma Purana. Ramante yogino nante satyananda chidatmani iti Rama vadan asau param brahma avidhiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. There is no end to such transcendental discourses. In mundane affairs, there is the law of satiation, but in transcendence, there is no such satiation. Suta Goswami desired to continue the topics of Lord Krishna before the sages of Naimisharanya, and the sages also expressed their readiness to hear from him continuously. Since the Lord is transcendent and his attributes are transcendental, such discourses increase the receptive mood of the purified audience. Om Jnanatirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Dharamayam Dharati. Once again I shall read the translation. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings, and his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar, rasa, ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about him? These are the words of the sages of Naimisharanya who are addressing Suta Goswami. In the earlier verse and the next verse as well, the same conversation dialogue is continued, and the sages of Naimisharanya, who are very eager to hear about the transcendental topics of Lord Krishna from an elevated soul like Suta Goswami, are now posing questions and encouraging him to speak further about this wonderful topic about the transcendental aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what do they say? They say he is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings. When they say great living beings, they have specified the greatest among the living beings. And the greatest among the living beings are Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Lord Brahma, as we all know, is the topmost among the living entities within this material. He his situation is beyond this material creation, but also not into the spiritual realm. He is in between the two. Lord Shiva is known as Mahadev. Mahadev means the chief of the demigods. And Lord Brahma is the secondary creator. He is the one who is responsible for this material, the creation of this material world. His position is compared to that of an engineer or an architect. The building blocks are already given to him, so he has to perfectly assemble them so as to create something very useful and something that is workable. That is the position of Lord Brahma. And as regards his capacity is concerned, he is the most intelligent among all the living beings. And therefore it is explained here that the personality of Godhead is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings. So now we understand from this that what is the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, vis-a-vis Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Though they are worshipable, Brahma and Shiva, yet there is somebody who is above them, and Shiva and Brahma themselves take shelter of Lord Krishna. And it is also explained that Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma themselves are mystic personalities. They have mystical powers. They are not ordinary beings. They can do superhuman feats. One such example is mentioned here already. And what is that one such example? That Lord Shiva drank the ocean of poison. And that is why he is known as Neelakanta. Because the poison, it stayed in his neck, he contained it within his throat, and his throat became blue in color. It is a superhuman activity which no ordinary person can ever think of. They explain here that just one drop of that poison is sufficient to kill a human being. And here he is condensing the whole ocean of poison, not just a drop, an ocean of poison. He is not only drinking it, but he is condensing it first so that it can fit into his palm. This is his mystic potency. And then he comfortably drinks it. But why does he do that? And who asked him to do it? It is Lord Vishnu himself who is ordering him to do it. And why does he do it? To save mankind and the entire creation from imminent death. It's interesting to note that the occasion when this poison was thrown up was the occasion of the Samudra Manthan, when the demons and the demigods churned the ocean. And when the churning of the ocean took place, actually what was the purpose of churning? To get nectar. But what came first? Poison. This actually represents the situation in our material world as well. Even in our daily endeavor, when we are attaining and working and striving for a goal, it isn't that the goal directly comes to us easily. We encounter so many obstacles. And at such times, we need the guidance, the shelter and the assistance of seniors. So that exactly is what is displayed here. So Lord Vishnu himself is ordering Lord Shiva. Because Lord Shiva is a surrendered soul and the Vaishnavana Shambhu, he is the greatest of all the Vaishnavas. And nobody less than Shiva could perform this task. So therefore he was assigned this very, very important and difficult task which nobody else could perform. Ishvara means controller. So it's explained they are Ishwaras or lords of the universe. And Brahma, who is the secondary creator, is also occupying a very lofty position. So it is explained here that his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers. So whose transcendental attributes cannot be measured? Lord Krishna's transcendental attributes cannot be measured, even by Shiva or Brahma. And to demonstrate this particular aspect, both of them submit themselves to very wonderful pastimes or leelas. We know the wonderful pastime where Lord Shiva actually requested Lord Vishnu to display his Mohini form. Mohini form means that beautiful form, very enchanting form by which Lord Vishnu enchanted all the demons during the process of Samudra Manthan. The form was so beautiful that the demons who were fighting amongst themselves and who were also fighting for the nectar, in fact who had already got possession of the nectar, had snatched it away from the demigods and were very eager to consume it. But that should not be allowed to happen, because the demons by nature are those who oppose the will of the Lord. And therefore, if they become more powerful, imminent destruction and adharma is bound to take place in that case. So therefore, the Lord devised a plan how to captivate and control these demons, not by power, but by subtle means. And the subtle means that he adopted was, he displayed a very beautiful and enchanting form. And such an enchanting and beautiful form he displayed that the demons were wonderstruck at the beauty of Mohini. Mohini means one who attracts. And therefore, they completely lost. Their intelligence was bewildered by the beauty of Mohini. That was the great power, the influence the Lord was able to exercise over the demons. And so, Lord Shiva is requesting Vishnu, please let me see that beautiful form of yours. And what does Vishnu say? Okay, go ahead and see. No. He dissuades him. He says, no, it is not for you. Because he knows that the Lord, that form is so enchanting that even Shiva will lose track of himself. But on the insistence of Lord Shiva, Vishnu displays the Mohini form. And what is the result? Lord Shiva, who is sitting with Parvati on his lap, who is sitting in front of his countless followers, who are all mystic yogis of great repute and great stature, and who is not in any kind of hiding or not in any kind of private chamber, in open, he gets completely bewildered by the beautiful form of Mohini. Losing control of himself, he starts chasing Mohini all through the universe. And Mohini is giving a chase and she runs through the ashram of so many mystics. And Shiva, disregarding who is looking at him, completely oblivious of the fact that he is being watched by so many of the disciples, is ready to display himself as a very common and conditioned living being. So what does this pastime actually indicate? This pastime actually indicates how the Lord Shiva is completely surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord. He wants to demonstrate in front of all the elevated souls who are worshipping him somewhat in the position of the Supreme Personality, that I am not the Supreme Personality, there is somebody who is above me, who is in such a position that he can control me, he can subjugate me, he can completely take charge of me, and he can bewilder my intelligence. And that is what he is demonstrating. Lord Shiva is demonstrating one of the greatest things. He is completely bereft of his ego. And that is what it takes for a living entity to attain the Supreme Lord. So he is giving us a very valuable lesson. At the same time, he is also demonstrating that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality, Krishna or Vishnu who is non-different, and he is also demonstrating that how one should surrender to the Supreme Lord. So many things are accomplished by these wonderful leelas. Similarly, Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma also is taking on the position of a bewildered soul. We know the famous Brahma Vimohan Leela, and in that the cowherd boys are playing with Lord Krishna, who is just a young boy, who is in the the Balya Avastha or the Paugata Avastha. That means he is just about 5, 6, something in that age group, and just as children are very eager to share the lunch and the other delicacies which are offered by their mothers, so when they are gone to graze to tend the cattle, the boys are all sitting around Krishna for a very wonderful lunch. And at that time, the Lord is playing with his friends so informally, that it becomes difficult for Brahma to believe that this boy could be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is he the same person from whose navel the lotus came, and from that lotus I have appeared? Is he the source of my existence? Is he that same supreme powerful personality? No. Again his intelligence got limited. He said he could not be. See how he is playing with his boys. What the boys were doing is, they were giving Krishna some item, and then they would snatch it from his hand, put it in their own mouth. Krishna would fight with them and forcibly pluck it out of their mouth and swallow it himself. Similarly, Krishna would hold some buttermilk in his mouth and he would inflate his cheeks in that way. And the boys would come and punch his cheeks, and the buttermilk would simply spiral out of the mouth, and they would come and drink that. Jutha. So Brahma said, what is this? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whom to make the offerings, we have to take a bath. Then we have to undergo all kinds of purificatory ceremonies. With such elaborate methods we worship the Lord, and then we offer him the food, and here these boys are taking it from out of their mouth and putting it into the mouth. This could not be the Supreme Personality. No. This is too much. So, bewildered by this aspect of the Supreme Lord, by his informal attitude and behavior towards his friends, what does Brahma do? He steals the calves and the cowherd boyfriends of Krishna, trying to bewilder him. But by his own mystic potency, what does the Lord do? He completely replicates all the boys and the calves and the cows. And for a moment, Brahma goes to hide them. And when he comes back and sees, they are all there intact as he left them. Now it is turn for Brahma to get the vision. He is completely bewildered. He says, what is this? Am I sure that I have taken away these calves and these boys? Once again he goes to check into the cave where he has put them to sleep. But in that moment that he goes and comes back, 1 year has passed. Because that is Brahma's time and that is our time. Time is relative. So again he is wondering. At that time, the Supreme Lord, out of his mercy to his Supreme Devotee Brahma, he manifests his Vishnu forms from each of the cowherd boys, from each of the calves and the cows that were assembled over there. And each of them takes the form of a Vishnu. And then Brahma understands who is Krishna. Completely surrenders unto him. So, that is what is explained over here. It is that Brahma for whom Krishna is worshipped. And Brahma himself acknowledges the overlordship of the Supreme Lord. He understands that this personality is the source of all mystic powers. So how can one who himself may be an elevated mystic personality understand his very source? It's very difficult to understand. The source has got much more than what you have. You have something from the source. The source is the very place from where you have come. So obviously the source is greater than you. So that is exactly what is meant by this verse. That even Shiva or Brahma cannot measure the prowess of Lord Krishna. Can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about him? That's what they are asking. Let's say that Lord Krishna's topics are so wonderful that nobody can ever be satiated. So it is just like, sometimes there are magicians. These magicians come and perform tricks. But when there are senior magicians, what happens? Their tricks don't work in front of the senior magician. So they immediately go, they take permission, they ask for pardon, and after taking blessings from the senior magician, then they can continue with the show. This is the tradition, this is how it goes. Similarly, so far as mysticism is concerned, the supreme mystic is Lord Krishna, and the others, they get their mystic powers from that supreme source. It is explained the relative position of Brahma, Shiva, all of us living entities, and Krishna and Vishnu. It's explained that the living entity has 50 qualities. But these 50 qualities, in infinitesimal quantities the living entity enjoys. So therefore the living entity naturally is imperfect. But Lord Brahma, who is also a living entity, that is his constitutional position, has one attribute, and that is he has the 50 qualities in full measure. That is the position of Brahma. Lord Shiva has 55 qualities, and therefore he is superior to Lord Brahma. It is explained that Lord Brahma dwells within the material creation, but Lord Shiva's position is over and above the material creation, but not into the spiritual world. He is between the two. And then Vishnu is having 60 qualities. And because he has 60 qualities, of course he is in the transcendental abode. And Krishna, who is the very source of Vishnu himself, has 64 qualities. And these 64 qualities make him the perfect supreme personality of Godhead. That is how it is explained that there is the relative situation of Krishna, Vishnu, Brahma, and the ordinary living entity has to be understood. There are 4 qualities which differentiate Vishnu from Krishna. I am sure all of you must be knowing it. Can we just listen to what are these 4 qualities which differentiate Krishna from Vishnu? Flute, yes.
Accompanied by devotees.
Accompanied by devotees.
Peacock feather.
Peacock feather, right? Pardon me? The Krishna does not have 4 arms. Krishna has only 2 arms. Yes, and I think an important point is his beauty. Unparalleled beauty. Not beauty. That is also one point. Anything else anybody can recollect? Of course, Krishna displays variety of childhood pastimes which no other incarnation has ever displayed. Narasimha, there is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he has no childhood pastimes at all. He directly appears from the pillar. So if you ask who is the mother of Narasimha, you must say it is the pillar. One more point is mentioned about satiation. In this material world, everything has a beginning and everything has an end. Nothing is unlimited. That is how this material world is created. And that is how we are part of this material world. We come into being and we go out of existence. Birth and death. So it's very difficult for us to comprehend the concept of unlimitedness. It's very difficult to comprehend that concept of what is unlimited. So when we are done our schooling and college, we did a subject called as economics. In economics we have one theory, the theory of diminishing marginal utility. What does this theory say? That as you go on getting more and more of what you want, the level of satiation that you experience, it goes on diminishing. The theory of diminishing marginal utility. It so happened once a policeman was patrolling the streets. And when he was patrolling the streets, he overheard a conversation. So one man in loud and gruff voice was telling, give him! And the other man in a meek and timid tone was shouting, spare me! And this man was again shouting, give him! Don't spare him! And the other man was again shouting, or rather timidly praying and beseeching, please, enough, spare me, leave me, please, enough. So this policeman said, well, this is a case of assault. So I had to go and save this person. He tapped the door and he goes straight inside. And what does he find? One man is serving food and the other man is having food. So he's telling, give him more, and the other person is telling, no, I can't take it more. So this demonstrates the principle of diminishing marginal utility. How much can you eat? Rasgullas, gulab jamun, maybe your choicest dish. The first one is nectarian. The second one is equally so. Third one is still relishable. The fourth one is okay. The fifth one is fine. The sixth one is just, well, I can do this one more. That's all. Nothing more than this. And you come to the seventh and the eighth. then it becomes torture. It is no more pleasing. It started with pleasure and it ends with torture. So this is the theory of diminishing marginal utility. This is what we experience in this material creation. This is what we experience in this material world. But contrast this with the spiritual creation. It is not like that. You can take, and still there is no point of satiation. That is what the meaning of unlimitedness is. That is what it means to be unlimited. Once the Mayavadi was condemning the devotee, and he said, "What is this? What are you people trying to do? You want to go back and be in the presence of the Supreme Lord. What will you do over there? You will look at the Lord and the Lord will look at you. What then?" He says, that is the end of it. How long can you stare at the Lord? But then, what is actually the relation between the Lord and the devotee? When the Lord looks at the devotee, the Lord experiences transcendental happiness and pleasure. And when the devotee looks at the Lord, his experience of bliss simply begins to overflow his heart. Anand Ambudi Vardhanam. Vardhanam means it's always increasing. Ambudi means ocean. Anand means bliss. So that is the relative position of the devotee and the Lord. So when the Lord and the devotee are sitting face to face, it is an unending competition of unending multiplication and overflow of bliss which both are experiencing. And therefore, that is the question of golden. That is the question of satiation. So this is what is explained in this verse. That can anyone who is expert in relishing nectar ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about hearing? Cannot be satiated. That is how the glory of discussion of the qualities, the activities, the pastimes, the name, the form of the Supreme Lord is. They are all non-different from each other. So therefore, when a pure devotee is listening and when a pure devotee is speaking, there is an uninterrupted, unending flow of nectar, and they both are bathing in bliss which cannot be expressed or experienced on the material platform. That is the experience. And this is what is the process of Shravana and Kirtana. So when somebody is speaking about the topics of the Supreme Lord and somebody is eagerly listening to those topics of the Supreme Lord, a very important spiritual activity is taking place, and that is the activity of enlightenment, that is the activity of generation of bliss, which is the purpose for which every living entity is working in this world. But they are seeking for it in the wrong place. That is the problem. People in this world want happiness, but where do they are seeking the happiness? In the wrong things. They are looking at it from the things of the world. The things cannot give happiness. The only reservoir of happiness is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. And therefore, one of the words which describes that reservoir of pleasure is Rama. Rama means the reservoir of all pleasure, the reservoir of all happiness. And therefore, Lord Krishna, Lord Ram, they are the reservoirs, the ocean of transcendental bliss and happiness which cannot be fathomed, which cannot be measured. Talking about measurement, I remember an incident which took place when I was in school. There was a rule that students must not wear bell bottoms to the school. So the full pants, the full trousers which they wear, the rule was the bottom should be 16 inches and not more. And our vice principal, Mr. Minash, was very strict and very observant. So when the assembly would take place and the students would stand in line, so he would come, and sometimes he would come with an inch tape around his neck, like a tailor. And as he would pass and inspect each student, sometimes he would find a student and he would become suspicious. What is the measurement of your bottom? The student would keep quiet. He would actually take the tape, sit at the feet of the student and measure the trousers. And if it was more than 16, he would send him packing home. Go back, change your trousers and come back with one which is measuring not more than 16. This was how he was implementing the discipline in the school. So one day he had a geography class. And in the geography class, our teacher, she was explaining to us the circumference of the earth. And she said, do you know what is the circumference of the earth? Students were fumbling. She told it is 25,000 kilometers or miles, I don't remember properly. So everybody was wonderstruck. Then she asked, do you know how to measure the circumference of the earth? Who can measure the circumference of the earth? One boy stood up and said, Mr. Minash can do it. She said, full marks to you and 5 bonus points to your house. So I remember this incident. So what we mean to say is, things in this world may be measurable, but the spiritual realm is beyond measurement. That is what we should understand. There is no question of measurement there, because it is ever increasing and the Lord is unlimited. So when we speak about limitation and unlimited, once while giving a lecture, I was trying to explain this point, and by the mercy of the Lord, the whole thing came in a rhyme. Krishna has no limit. Better if you know it. Submit and admit that you cannot outwit. And if you still persist, you can't just exist. Father of Prahlad and Ravan did try, and ended in the pan like the proverbial fry. So lock up your reason and pack up your ego. Bring up your faith and in the holy name beg. Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, I am sure all of you know him. A wonderful devotee from Pune, who is a wonderful author and writing so many books. Just while coming to Bangalore, I was reading his book, Idol Worship or Ideal Worship. And there he has explained this concept in a very nice way. He says, some people, they try to understand Lord by logic. That is, they are trying to measure Krishna. So they are trying to use logic to understand and measure Krishna. But by the very logic, because Krishna is unlimited, you cannot know it by logic. It is illogical to say that you can know Krishna by logic, because he is unlimited. And if Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality, were I would say lesser than logic, that logic can explain Krishna, then logic is greater than Krishna. Then Krishna is not supreme, logic is supreme. That is what becomes. So it is illogical to say that by logic you can know the Supreme Personality of God. Then how to know Him? The method to know Him is trans logic. Trans logic means you have to transcend the logic. Therefore, and I heard one beautiful statement given by Madhavan Prabhu recently when there was a lecture. He said, the seed form of Krishna Prem is bhakti. Please try to contemplate over the statement. It's got a very deep meaning. The seed form of Krishna Prem is bhakti. That means, if you want the fruit, you must sow the seed. Only then you will get the fruit. If you sow anything else, you won't get the fruit. If you sow intelligence, will you get bhakti? No. You have to sow faith. So only if you have faith, then you will get the fruit of Krishna Prem. That is the meaning. So if you want to know Krishna, please stop using your intelligence. Back it up. And another one thing which comes in the way of backing it up is ego. So lock it up. Give up these two things. And then take faith. Take out faith, which is also given to each one of us. When we come into this world, we are given a kit. And in that kit, one of the things that is packed along with us is faith. So we have to take it out. And if we find that the quantity of faith we are having is less, then there is a method of improving or growing that faith. And the method is, go to those who are faithful. They have got a lot of stock. you can glorify them. That is the meaning of association of devotees. When you associate with devotees, that is what happens. You associate with those who have faith. I remember once we were traveling in a car and there were more number of devotees than the car could accommodate. So I was driving the car and since there were so many more devotees, they all had to be accommodated. So after the car was fully packed behind, even the dicky, some devotees sat in the dicky also. Of course it's a hatchback, so you could sit in the dicky. And there was one devotee left out. So Gauranga Prabhu said, come and sit on my lap. So he came and sat on his lap. And the car started moving. And the devotee was sitting in the front. He said, Krishna, I am having the closest of association. So actually, association is not actually physical association. Association means to be in the presence of a personality from whom you can take on their qualities. That is the meaning of association. Prabhupada has given a beautiful example for association. What does he say? You take an iron rod and you put it in the fire. What happens? It assumes the quality of fire. It becomes hot because if you touch it, your hand will burn, and it becomes red hot, so it starts emitting light. So that is another quality of fire. Heat and light. And both these qualities are now in the iron rod. So the iron rod now has assumed the quality of fire. Similarly, when an individual comes in the association of a devotee, he receives those qualities from the devotee. But one quality is required to receive it. And what is that quality? Humility. Without humility, you cannot receive it. To explain this, there is also one little illustration. The kettle said to the pot, you are giving water to everybody, why not to me? So the pot replied, you are sitting on my head. You come down, you will also get it. So the same way, in our life, if we try to assume a superior position of I know, then we don't know. But if you assume a humble position of I don't know, then knowledge and mercy begins to flow, and we know. So this is a paradox. So I have been asked to speak something about a very important occasion which is coming very shortly, and that is book marathon, the December book marathon. So all over ISKCON, all over the world, devotees during the month of December go out and distribute books, and so that time is very close by. Just in a week or two we will be into the month of December, and so it is nice to hear a few stories and anecdotes about book distribution, which will enthuse us to go out and pick up the books. And actually, even to distribute the books, we need the quality of humility. Without being humbling oneself, one cannot distribute books. So, I would like to share a little experience. Radhapathi Prabhu, you all know he is a great book distributor, famous all over ISKCON for his capacity to distribute books. One of the top book distributors. Presently, I think he is located in Mayapur, and just a week before he had been to Chowpatty temple and he gave a small talk on book distribution during the Sunday lecture. Actually, he related his own experience. When he was in school, maybe standard 6th or 7th, some devotees came and they were showing the books. He was so attracted by this that he got hold of one of those books. That was the Bhagavad Gita. And a kind of mystic potency worked, and something told him, this book is very valuable, I must read this book. So he went home and started reading the book. But needless to say, he didn't understand a word of what was written in the book. He had never heard heard the name of Krishna, he had never heard the name of Rama. And all these spiritual topics which were mentioned in the book, they were Greek and Latin to him, alien language. Even for those of us who were not accustomed to ISKCON language, when you first come into ISKCON, these words are bombastic and you wonder, is it English? I thought I knew English. It is something else. So we start wondering. And even when we are asked to give lecture in another language, again we are groping for words because the spiritual words don't come easy. So this was packed with such high potency words, and Naveen Prabhu was at a loss to understand what is this book trying to convey. But one thing happened. Like most others, he didn't keep the book aside. He didn't throw the book. He took it up and he relentlessly read the book for the next 6 months. Why? Because that faith was ingrained in him. This book has tremendous knowledge. This book has tremendous information. This book has tremendous potency. I have to get it. I have to unlock it. I have to reach out to it. And in that hope, in that aspiration, he kept on reading, he kept on reading, he kept on reading. 6 months passed away and nothing happened. He didn't give up. Determination. This is the meaning of determination. And what happened on the 6th month? Suddenly one day when he opened the book, it was as if this book was his age-old friend and he knew him inside out. Everything started making sense to him and everything became meaningful. It was as if the book was talking to him. They were old friends and they knew each other for ages. And then he could realize the full potency of the book. So, these books are not ordinary. Prabhupada's books are transcendental. They go beyond logic. By logical meaning, you cannot understand how this book can bring about a change in the lives of people. Therefore, devotees are urged to go out and distribute the books. There are ever so many incidences, but I don't want to go into many of them because time is limited. What time should we end? Can you please guide me? 5 minutes. So, this happened in Mumbai. There was a devotee, just a week before Gita Jayanti, he was going door to door. And he went and knocked one door. And what happened? No response. He could have gone ahead, but something told him, don't give up, try again. He knocks again, no response. 5 times, 7 times, 10 times he knocked, no response. The normal circumstances he should have gone away. But something told him, knock, don't give up. He again knocked, and the door opened. And an angry woman emerged from behind the door. And she chastised him. Why are you bothering me? I was doing a very important activity. Now get out of my sight. And she tried to slam the door on his face. But this devotee, expert as he was, put his foot between the door and did not let her slam the door on his face. And instead, he countered her with the Bhagavad Gita. He put the book straight on her face and he told her, Madam, I have come to give you this book. Just the sight of the book changed the expression of her face. She mellowed down. She became calm. She cooled down. And she started asking, what is this book you have brought? And he explained, this is Bhagavad Gita. What does it say? It says that you are the soul, you are not this body. Then she heard this devotee out for the next 5 minutes. And he gave her the entire 2nd chapter summary of the Bhagavad Gita. Devotees are waiting for an opportunity. People are not willing to listen, but if somebody they get, or they get a captive audience, no other way. Hello, Nastyeva. So there was no other way, and she had to listen, and he spoke. But a wonderful transformation took place. And immediately, she thanked the devotee profusely, and she told him, I want you to please come in. I want you to see what was that important work I was at. And she took him to the inner chamber, and there a rope was hanging from the ceiling side, and there was a chair below, and she had tied it into a noose and she was ready to commit suicide. She was so frustrated that she was in the process of committing suicide. And just that timely intervention of a devotee, that timely introduction of the book in her life brought about a sea change in her life. She was saved from committing suicide, a sinful act. It saved her life, and she was profusely grateful to the devotee. So therefore, this is not a stray incident. These kind of things are happening over and over again in the course of various devotees who are going out and trying to give the holy name, trying to give the message of the Bhagavad Gita to people. It's actually going to save the life of devotees. This was an example of instant karma. This was an example where the lady's life was saved at the nick of time. But there are examples of delayed karma. And somebody takes a book and doesn't even look at it. This happened in France. In France, what happened was, there was a lady who was distributing books in the local train, and she gave this book to a passenger. And he was so rebellious in nature. He was so, I would say, an atheistic person that he actually tore the Krishna book. And he not only tore the Krishna book, he threw the book out of the train and he threw the lady out of the train. She fell down, her cheek was hurt, and she suffered at the hand of this person. Now this person went. Maybe there could be some variations in what I am telling. You might have heard about this, but it is nice to hear again, just to reassure ourselves about the power of this book. So this person went, and maybe after 3 months, again this Krishna book came to his head, but this time he was in a different frame of mind. He read the book. After reading the book, it completely transformed him, and then he said, "Oh, that lady, I have insulted her, I have mistreated her." And when he went to the temple, he found her. He begged profusely apology from her. And today that person is a lady. Don't ask me who, because even I don't know. But I know this story. Okay. So this way there are so many examples. One last incident. This happened in Delhi. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj. There was one Sri Radhapathi So there was one person who was a professional of water management, and this person was going around and educating people on the seriousness of conserving water. So he said, India and China are two nations which are going to suffer the worst, and this man was actually himself very much concerned. He was very disturbed that our water resources are depleting and we need to conserve and increase our water resources. We need to change our lifestyles. We need to check this industrialization which is rampant and unchecked. So all these lectures he was giving, and he himself had started becoming disturbed and distraught. It was at this time that Gopal Krishna Maharaj came, and he just called him aside and he told him, you don't have to take so much pains because a solution is already there in the Bhagavad Gita. And he read out the shloka, Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanya anna samabha. And in that he explained that grains nourish living entities, and by rains we get grains. And grains are obtained when we perform sacrifices and by the mercy of the Lord. So he said, if you want rains and if you are so disturbed about water, all that you have to do is take the Bhagavad Gita and follow it. All your water problems will be solved. And then what did this man do? He ordered 4,000 copies of Bhagavad Gita. He was convinced. He immediately ordered 4,000 copies of Bhagavad Gita. So this way there are so many stories, so many anecdotes by which people are getting inspired to when they receive this book. So sometimes there is instant reaction, sometimes there is delayed reaction, but action is certain, and Bhagavad Gita is actually the mercy of the Lord flowing into not only our land, into our hearts and into our lives. So we have to accept it, just we have to open our hearts and accept this mercy. Thank you very much. One more thing, the name of the Lord is not different from the Lord himself and is not different from the message of the Lord. So, in ISKCON, very fortunate, many miles away, Supreme Personality. Yet, that same Supreme Personality reaches out to us through this message, the message of Bhagavad Gita. And that same Supreme Personality comes to interact with us on an individual capacity, one-to-one basis, in the form of the holy name. So just by chanting of this holy name, we can actually establish direct contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the power of chanting. And to enable us, to encourage us, to improve the quality of our chanting, and to enable us to actually come in contact with the Supreme Personality by this subtle process of chanting, which is actually a transcendental process. We are going to have Mahatma Prabhu coming very shortly here, and what is the date of it? December 2nd, 3rd and 4th. He is going to give a seminar. So do not miss this opportunity. Please enroll yourselves and be the recipient of this wonderful technique of how to chant better. We are all chanting in ISKCON for so many years. But why is it that the experience of the direct presence of the Supreme Lord is eluding us? Because there is some defect in our chanting. So he is coming to remove that defect. Talking about this, I recollect one more incident. One of the preachers had been to IIT. You know, IIT is a very premium institute, and you have superlative quality, intelligence, devotees, or not devotees, students in those kinds of institutions. So when one devotee went there, and he was eloquently speaking about the holy name, and about God, and about Bhagavad Gita, a rebellious kind of student got up, and he said, "Hey man, what do you think of yourself? Do you think you have some hotline to God or so?" So this devotee was a little calm, and he just replied to him. He told him, "Yes, my friend, I have a hotline to God. But not only me, you also have a hotline to God. But the problem is, yours is not working and mine is working." And I have come to rectify yours. So Mahatma Prabhu is coming to rectify our work.